As Hurricane Sandy bore down on North America, hundreds of youth from across Canada marched through the streets of Ottawa demanding the government keep its promise to end the $1.4 billion a year in subsidies given to the fossil fuel industries.
Well, it sounds like the people have spoken. Let's see who it goes to. The fossil fuel industry!
First Nations communities on the front lines of the Alberta tar sands called attention to how their traditional territory and way of life has been devastated.
About 20 years from now, my community, the ACFN, will be displaced because of too much pollutants coming down the Athabasca River. We have rare types of cancers right now in my community. These cancers are only spreading from community to community to community.
Clayton Thomas Muller, a Manitoba Cree and a leading environmental campaigner, called for a separation of oil and state.
400 years ago, we had Jesuit priests come into our First Nations in black robes, promising a better way of life through changing the way we communicated with our Creator by embracing Christianity. And at that time, there was no separation between church and state, and the religion of the day was Catholicism. Well, today, there is, instead of Jesuit priests, corporate CEOs in black suits coming into our communities, promising a better way of life through changing the way we relate to the sacredness of Mother Earth. And as we know today, there's no separation between oil and state, as we can see by the $1.4 billion in subsidies that this government is giving to the world's most powerful and richest corporate entities ever in the history of money.
The Toxic Trick-or-Treat March featured climate chaos-themed Halloween costumes that targeted the likes of McDonald's, Shell, BP and Monsanto, with corporate zombies, Frankensteins and GMO corn monsters. The march was the culmination of Power Shift 2012, a weekend-long climate conference attended by youth from across Canada and the US demanding more just solutions to the climate and economic crises. Best-selling author Naomi Klein attended the conference and described her upcoming book in a press conference.
Climate change is not in itself the crisis, it's the symptom of a broader crisis that has to do with an economic model that's built on endless growth and the idea that we can act as if we can have infinite consumption on a finite planet. So in the context of climate change, what you see is that you need a very strong public sphere, a very strong commons to deal with the effects of climate change that we can't avoid, because what you see is that if you have weak infrastructure and you get hit with a heavy storm, you're toast. But also that if you want to avert the climate chaos, if you want to actually lower your emissions, you also need public infrastructure. You need public transit. You need this strong bones of the public sphere. I think we on the left have given up, in my opinion, the most compelling argument against this economic model, which is that it is at war with the life support systems on Earth.
But it wasn't just youth and First Nations protesting. The raging grannies, dressed as the wise witches, also came with a special message for Prime Minister Harper.
We say no to the oil sands. Really, we are saying drastically no. And we have a message for Mr. Harper, of course. Harper's bizarre. He wants the tar for dirty oil as we all boil.